Hey, what's up, kings and queens? We are so excited to be hijacking the Kicking It With K podcast, your favorite life coach, Kayla Smith. My name is Paul Little. I have the privilege of serving as pastor teacher of Bib Mount Zion Baptist Church, as well as CEO of Innovate Leadership Group. And joining me is...
I'm Kamari Fuller. I'm an artist that goes by the name Cam Era. I also work at Bib Mount Zion as an online content creator, and I'm also a college student.
What college?
Georgia State University.
Tell them what was the last GPA for the freshman year?
4.04.
4.04. It's my man Kamari. Does an amazing job with content creation here at our church, and we're so excited because we're taking over the Kicking It With K podcast, as I just mentioned, and we're excited because your favorite life coach has given us all access to be able to have a wonderful conversation. So we're really looking forward to it. So today we want to have a conversation about the value of vision.
Right.
The value of vision. When we start thinking about our lives and all that God has in store for us and the path, the trajectory that God has us on, it's really important that we understand the importance of vision.
Right. Definitely.
You know, I like to say, Kamari, that there are two types of people in the world. There are people who live their lives, number one, by default, and some by design.
Right.
So there are people who live by default, which means they wake up every day, they wander through life. There's no plan, there's no structure, there's no vision. They're just kind of floating through life. But then there are people who live by design in the sense that they recognize that God has a specific strategic plan for their lives.
Right.
So what are your thoughts when you start thinking about vision, the importance of having a vision, and the role that it plays in our everyday living?
Well, for me, it's just being in tune with one God and also yourself. I think that those are the two most important things when we start talking about having a vision for our lives.
Yeah.
Because if you're a person of faith and you have a relationship with God, then you want to make sure that you're walking in the purpose that He has for your life.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing is, if you don't know yourself, then how are you going to be able to do something that fulfills you? And that's going to, reflect in the type of work that you do.
Yes.
It's going to reflect in all aspects of your life, mental health, physical health.
Absolutely.
Everything. So really, I think that those are the two most important things.
Yeah, so being in tune with God and being in tune with myself puts me on the pathway to understanding my vision.
Right.
So let's define vision for those who are viewing. So I like to personally define vision as a clear picture of a specific destination.
Right.
That's how I define it. When I think about a vision, I think about here is the end goal, the end destination for my life.
Right.
Here is where I am right now. Here is where God would have me to be. Mm-hmm. And this journey towards this vision, that's my life's purpose. It's an everyday, step-by-step journey that allows me to move from where I am to where God would have me to be. When we start thinking about vision, one of the things I think that's very significant is recognizing sort of a twofold approach to the value of vision. Okay. So number one, I'll say this, and I want to get your thoughts on this because I believe that, number one, a vision from God will guide us.
Right.
It guides us. It gives us direction as it relates to every aspect of our lives, as you just mentioned. And it gives us a sense of direction, a sense of discernment and wisdom as we're making decisions. Mm-hmm. So basically, my God-given vision really shapes every part of my life.
Right.
It shows me who I need to be in relationship with, who I do not need to be in relationship with, the time, the energy, the relationships, the jobs that I invest my energy in.
Right.
All of that should be shaped by my vision. So a vision, it really does guide me. What do you see in terms of vision and how it can help us to, have a sense of direction about our lives? Because if we'll be honest, we've all been confused about certain aspects of our lives. I'm sure there are people who are watching this that we've had those moments where we were unsure of ourselves. We didn't know if we should go to this school or that school, take this job or that job. So how have you navigated sort of this vision challenge and then getting to a place of being in tune with God and yourself and understanding, the necessity of being guided towards that particular purpose?
Well, one thing I want to say before that is visions can change.
Yes.
They can definitely change. So you have to be adaptable.
That's good.
But for me, it's a lot of it's praying. So of course, making sure I have that strong connection with God.
Absolutely.
And just being able to discern if it's me speaking to myself and trying to say certain things, or if it is God telling me, hey, this is the path that I have for you.
Right.
And then there's another thing for me. It's knowing, okay, there's things that I can control.
Yep.
Those are the things that I need to work on. Everything else that I can't control, that's out of my hands. Those are the things that I need to trust God to work on.
Absolutely.
So especially, believing in God and just knowing that if it like trust is, it's kind of like this two-way thing. So I not only have to trust that he's going to handle the things that I can't personally do myself, but it's trusting that he's blessed me with everything, the knowledge, the wisdom, the drive, the ambition to actually do the work that I need to put in as well. And I think that is an extremely important thing in trying to navigate what the vision is for your life. And there's vision in all aspects of your life, whether it's a health journey, a job, a dream, a passion, just different goals. You have to have vision. So there's vision on a small scale, and then there's vision on a large scale. And I think even when you look at it on a larger scale, we still have to look at those small pieces to make up the big picture.
I think that's really powerful because let's be honest, that when God shows us the big picture, the vision, he does not show us the details of how we're going to get to that place, which is why the Bible says we walk by faith, not by sight. If God showed us, Kamari, everything that we would have to endure, all of the battles, all of the different situations we would face to get to that point, we would quit before we got started, right? So it really is a faith journey. And I love what you said, that depending on the season, the vision could change. So it's really important that I stay in tune with God and myself to recognize when a season is up in my life, when I need to start shifting towards another vision. I think that's really, really powerful. So number one, we say that a vision will guide us, but here's the other thing. A vision will also guard us. I think this is important. This is important because it speaks to the power of focus. And you cannot be an effective, fruitful, successful person without having focus.
That's true.
Right? It helps me to eliminate all of the distractions, all of the various things that will come my way. Because let's be honest, when you're gifted at something, there's going to be the temptation to do more things as you continue to find your gifts. Right. So if I have a gift to communicate, a gift to write, in your case, you have a speaking gift, you rap, you do poetry, you write music. So if we're not careful, we'll have this temptation to do all of those things. And that's great if it fits into the grand scheme of things as it relates to my vision. But if those things are outside of my vision, if some of those things that I may have a passion for are outside of God's vision, I could be spending time, energy, and effort on something that's really not going to give me a big return. Right. So how do you stay, focused? Like what are some of the things you do in terms of goal setting to keep your eyes on the specific vision for that particular season?
One thing I really like to do is like manifesting. So if I don't believe that I can accomplish what I'm doing, then what's the point of trying to put in the work anyways? The mind is a powerful thing. So, what we actually think actually often helps to, determine what the outcome will be.
Absolutely.
So if I don't have a positive outlook or a positive mindset about the things that I want to accomplish and actually believe that I can accomplish them, then, they're not going to get done. So I think that is the first step in trying to stay focused. One thing that I've been doing is just using my phone. So after I wake up and I pray, I always try to record a video of me saying my goals. So for me, I say I'm going to be a successful artist, and I say that that's going to happen. Every morning I wake up, I say that, and it's almost kind of turned into a journal as well, where I just kind of talk about how
like a visual journal,
how I'm feeling, the different things that I might want to do in a day. Like the other day, I had been kind of feeling creatively drained. So I said that in my journal, the video thing. I was creatively drained, but it has helped me kind of to recognize being sustainable. So when we talk about focus, I think a large part of that is focusing on the sustainability aspect of it. Because you can work really hard, but if you burn yourself out, then you're not going to reach you're not going to reach your destination.
Absolutely right.
So that has really helped me. But planning stuff out. So for instance, when I drop a song, I always try to make a plan of, what are the things that I'm going to do leading up to the song? What are the videos that I want to create? What are the different things that I want to put out there to let people know about the song or that type of thing? So that's kind of the way that I try to stay focused, because if I have a specific plan, then I know I'm going to do this, this, and that. And if I think of something else and it could fit, maybe we'll go there. But it's like, if I have the specific plan, then all of the other possibilities possibilities because there's an infinite amount of things
Absolutely.
that I could do.
Absolutely.
Right. But I'm going to stay focused on maybe the 3 things that I sit. And that means that I know that I can put all of my work into those 3 things and I'm going to be able to do those 3 things great, as opposed to trying to do 10 things.
Right. On a mediocre level.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And let's go back to something that you mentioned, because I talk a lot about sustainability, not just from an organizational standpoint, but personally as well. So when we think about sustainability, it's this idea that when I start something, it can scale and grow. Now, let's be honest. When you start thinking about entrepreneurship, business, we have people that we know, and there are people, in different communities. Specifically in our community, it's stated from a statistical matter that African American people start more businesses than any other culture, but we also go out of business faster than any other culture as well. So that means that we don't have a problem starting; we have a problem continuing. So that's a sustainability issue, right? So if I can start it and not sustain it, then that means that the manner in which I start something must be constantly improved and constantly worked on, so that I don't burn out personally or from a business standpoint or whatever my vocation is. So let's talk a little bit about daily habits. When you're talking about this idea of speaking your dreams and your goals and your visions, let's talk about what that does for us in the sustainability process, and how sometimes let's be honest when we say this, sometimes our greatest enemy is ourselves, and sometimes our greatest cheerleader is ourselves. So now let's talk a little bit about how you do this daily routine and how we can encourage the viewers to incorporate that into their daily habits as we're thinking about sustaining our vision.
Right. So the recording in the morning, or really actually any part of the day, if I may forget. Yeah. So one thing, since it's something that I just started, and I saw a video, it was like a TED Talk about building habits. Yeah. And it was talking about the way that you do that is in small increments. Don't try to go for the whole big thing at first. Right. You want to start small, to build those habits. So when we're talking about building habits, if you want to maybe make a journal or start manifesting by way of writing or videoing or anything like that, or even if you're on a health journey, working out, and those are the different things that we want to focus on, start small. So one thing that they said is if you want to run a mile every day, don't try to run the mile in the first day, right? You can build on that, and you can start. Maybe the first step is you getting home from work and getting your running shoes. So you may not even step outside that day to go run, but you get those running shoes and you just put them by the door maybe. Okay, then the next day you build up, you get your running shoes, maybe you put them on this time, open the door, take a step outside, and each day you just continue to build up from that. It's going to help you to stay focused on that, but also to not get discouraged. And one thing that I really like that they said in the video was that oftentimes when you go to do these smaller tasks, your motivation to do bigger pieces of it actually starts to
increases,
come. Right. So I really think that is a big thing. If we're talking about sustainability, start small. And then I think that's a good segue to say, don't spread yourself too thin.
That's right.
You were talking about businesses, a lot of Black-owned businesses. We start the most businesses, but then we also go out of business the most. And, I don't personally know the reason for that, but I know a couple reasons that I would, possibly fail in that sense of I have a lot of interests, and I have to be careful to not try to do so many different things. I'm into music, I'm into technology, I'm very creative, and when you're creative, there's so many different things you can do. I love videography, I love cinematography, all of these different things, and I have to make sure that I'm staying focused. I also love playing games, and that's something that I've had to stop doing.
To increase your productivity,
to increase my productivity, because I don't want to spread myself too thin, work too hard. Like we talked about, if you spread yourself too thin, you're doing too many different things. Your work often becomes mediocre.
Absolutely.
Or you get exhausted and you just don't want anything to do with it anymore. You may even kind of lose the passion for it when you're spreading yourself too thin, doing too many different things. And from an entrepreneurial standpoint, like let's say someone's doing a bakery, you don't want to necessarily start out having 100 different
100 different cookies.
Right. You want to start out with maybe even one.
Right.
I think it was Five Guys, and they started out with like just the burger, and their menus is still just the burger is very simple. It's a very simple thing. They started out with one thing, and they focused on that one thing, made sure that they did it good, and then as they grew, they said, okay, we can bring in this other thing, we can bring in the next thing. So I think that is definitely a big thing that you have to focus on, is not spreading yourself too thin, knowing what you do good. And just focusing on that one aspect.
Absolutely. You said a lot in that short period of time. The TED Talk that you're mentioning is from a book called Atomic Habits.
Okay.
James Clear, that particular. I read that book last year. One of the things he talked about is the importance of us building those habits and building momentum. Right. So the shoe illustration of me identifying the shoe one day and then putting on the shoe next day and then continuing this process of developing that habit, it really helps us to gain momentum. Right, which is a key word when we start talking about success.
Definitely,
you have to start somewhere.
Right,
I'm consulting with about 4 or 5 different churches and also businesses as well. And I have this young lady that I'm working with who has an amazing idea that she's had on paper for about 1.5 years.
Wow!
At some point, you have to translate it from paper into reality. You have to start.
Right,
and those habits that we develop over time really helps us to understand the importance of building momentum because it increases our passion for the thing that we're believing that we're going to strive for. Now, you also said the importance of us understanding what we do well and focusing on those things. I share your problem in that I have a lot of interest, and if we're not careful, we can spread ourselves too thin, and we end up not doing those things well because we are putting our energy all over the place. If everything is important, nothing is important. Right. Okay, so that's important for us to hear. If everything is important, nothing is important. Successful people have narrow visions but broad perspectives. Right. So if I do 2 things well, I need to master those 2 things and kill it every time. I don't need to master 40 things to be successful. Because the people that we know that are successful don't do 40 things well. They do 1 or 2 things well. Exactly. When we think about Serena Williams, we don't think about 5 different things. We think about 1 thing. When we think about Michael Jordan or LeBron or Kobe, we think about 1 or 2 things, right? Steve Jobs, right? So successful, legendary people who've accomplished great things in this world from a secular standpoint, they understand the importance of mastering, 1 or 2 things, sticking with it, and then expanding those things. Right. So let me show you what that looks like. If I'm a communicator, if I speak, that's the one thing I do well. Right. But I can also take that communication gift and translate it into podcasts, translate it into online content via Zoom, translate it into books, translate it into motivational speaking. So the overall umbrella is still communication, but I have different avenues by which I communicate. Right. That's different from me having 5 or 6 different things that I'm interested in. Right. When I just have one thing that I'm interested in, but I have different avenues of how how I carry it out. Right. And I think that's important for our visionaries who are watching this to understand that you have to do a self-analysis and do inventory of who you are and what you do well. You have to know what makes you tick, what keeps you up at night, and what makes you get up in the morning. Right. That's the vision, that's the passion, that's the purpose that God has put on the inside of you. And oftentimes, let's say this, Kamari, that oftentimes the thing that frustrates you is the thing that you're called to fix. Right. The thing that you have a discontent about, oftentimes is the thing that God has assigned for you to be a part of being the solution for. Right. So how do you look at, from the perspective of the music and the technology, how do you see yourself solving problems, if you will? Because I think every visionary, every person is called to solve a problem. Right. What do you think in terms of the music, the tech space, the various gifts that you have, and how you're pulling those gifts together under this one roof, right? Kamari Fuller, the Instagram artist, the tech guru, the genius, the online content creator. How do you see yourself contributing to the world as it relates to the gifts that God has given you?
Well, the thing that you just said about often the thing that you're frustrated about is the thing that you're called to fix. Yeah. When I was first starting music and still now, sometimes I get very frustrated about the subject matter of music, especially in hip hop.
Yeah.
And so that was a thing that really, really frustrated me in the beginning, as I was like, wow, there's all these negative messages, people, spewing out negativity, even, lying in their raps, making a false life,
Right.
And for me, when I do music, it's like I want to put my truth into the music, and I also want to encourage, inspire, help people have music that's positive, to help people to go pursue their dreams, pursue their passions, to teach them. Like I said, I talk about my spiritual journey in music a lot of the times, and just all different aspects of my life. But one thing that remains the same, no matter what I'm talking about in my music, is I try to make sure that it's positive, and that the way that it affects the listener won't be in a negative way, but rather a positive way.
Great. That's great.
So in the music aspect, that's what I think a problem that I'm trying to solve is, being a positive person in that space, instead of being another negative artist.
I mean, it's flooded with so much negativity. Right. So can God use me to be light in the midst of all of that darkness? I really think that whether you are an online creator, a rapper, a janitor, a teacher, I think at the core, that's what God has called all of us to do. Right. We are light in the midst of darkness. Right. And once we have that relationship with God that you talked about earlier, it pushes us to this place of recognizing that we don't exist for ourselves.
Exactly.
We exist to share our gifts, our talents, our influence, our resources with the rest of the world, right? To positively impact people for the good of humanity and ultimately to the glory of God. I think this is really powerful, and I want to say to all of our viewers who are watching and those who are listening to make sure that you tap into, that relationship that you have with God, if you have that relationship, and making sure you understand that you are here for a greater purpose. We're not just here to exist. We're not just here taking up space. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. And we want you to tap into that purpose so that you can not only live to see yourself be this successful individual, but that you can use your life, your skills, your gifts, and your talents in order to benefit somebody else. Hey, we appreciate Kayla Smith for letting us hijack the podcast. We got to do this again soon.
Definitely.
And y'all got to come back with us, but stay tuned. Make sure you check out next week's episode, Kicking It with Kay, your favorite life coach. Kings and queens, have a great day. It's been a blessing.